Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. I hope you guys are having at least a somewhat decent day, considering that the market is still falling down in the red. Even though the S&P 500 basically closed just slightly in the green, we're still seeing a lot of stocks that are experiencing a pullback, especially tech stocks and Palantir included. Down about another 2 to 3%, including the after hours. We're continuing to see a larger pullback with Palantir. Now, this is not necessarily a horrible thing for this individual stock, but we need to break down what are the support zones, what technical things are happening in terms of the selling pressure that we're seeing across the board. And with earnings coming up in about a month in February, early February, ladies and gentlemen, there could be possibly good entry points for Palantir, all depending on your time horizon. We're also going to be talking about NVIDIA coming out and crushing quantum computing stocks by saying one statement. And we're also going to be giving you guys an update on what's happening in the broader market. Hey, we're really close to 22,000 subscribers. You guys are coming through. I can't thank you guys enough. Let's see if we can hit that number tonight. And of course, I'm not a financial advisor. Collecting all the data and dispatching it to you, hit that like button. Now, everybody remember, the markets are going to be closed tomorrow to honor President Carter's passing. What we see, though, on the markets today and where Palantir is specifically in the after hours is at 67.75 with a market cap at 155 billion. Now we see Palantir that loses that $70 level of support and is now retracing to the mid 60s. We're going to be breaking down an article talking about different support zones in different areas that we can look for if this continues to fall. Right now in the options area, what I'm seeing for end of the week expirations, a lot of puts coming in, actually outpacing the calls. This is where Palantir is valuation starting to come more of a larger concern, considering the fact that we have Cathie Wood that is continuing with ARK to sell more stocks. We already had that on top of what we've seen. And of course, we've seen Morgan Stanley with the underweight rating, kind of all these bearish sentiments that are coming together. And then Jim Cramer, remember, coming out, starting this, saying Palantir starting to make its move. When he released this, Palantir and Tesla have been down over 10% of their market cap since that statement, starting to make the move to the downside. That is some reverse Cramer theory right there playing out, talking about the bears coming out of hibernation as Palantir retraces from a 340% year. That is one thing that's important to remember when we do see these stocks coming down. Always important, when in doubt, zoom out. I can't stress that enough. Zooming out, getting the general picture, not getting so caught up in the day-to-day thing. Like I said, if people are in here for the long term. Now, Investopedia coming out with this article here talking about Palantir price levels as the stock continues to retreat from record highs. Basically, summary, talking about what we've already mentioned, ARK Invest, Morgan Stanley. Investors looking for critical support levels, though, at the 66, the 59, and the 45, while also monitoring major resistance. Of course, a reversal could happen in the market. I think that's going to be dependent on the jobs data that will be released this Friday. We'll be touching base on that. But recent selling of the shares right here is continuing to bring down Palantir. And if they take a closer look at the chart, talking about this rising wedge pattern breakdown, that Palantir is really breaking down from this rising wedge in terms of a technical basis that was in late December before kind of retesting the pattern's lower trend line. Since that, we've seen selling pressure, trading volumes remaining lackluster. In addition, we see the relative strength index, the RSI, showing weakening of price momentum, dropping below the key 50 threshold for the first time since early August of last year. So that's why critical support levels here are important to start gearing up and relying on if the stock does continue to drop. Looking at the 66 level, Palantir could be testing that at the market open come on Friday, depending on how the jobs report's going to go. If that fails, then we see Palantir getting down here possibly into the lower 60s. These could be decent entry points for anybody that's been sitting on the sidelines that has not want to pay over $85 for Palantir. Talking about here, even a deeper correction of the stock could even trigger a gap down to the 45 level. That would be pretty significant, a very, very strong correction. I think we'd call that a true tumble. But let's talk about Palantir earnings. A lot of people have some controversy with earnings regarding what we've talked about this with the SARs, the stock-based compensation. There's a lot of money on the line. Some people are saying that this has been priced in. Analysts are pricing this in to the actual earnings per share estimates, while others have said, no, this is not being anticipated. I don't know personally. However, if Palantir, more people are starting to say this could possibly miss earnings, trying to not throw more bearish sentiment on top of more bearish perspective, but giving you guys the highlight here that Palantir could be due for a large pullback in terms of getting more back to its not value, true valuation, but back to more of a realistic possible price relative to what we've seen in terms of growth. Now, of course, with all these things, people might be coming out and say, hey, Data, why are you going so bearish on Palantir? I am not. I am still very bullish on Palantir. Nothing is changing within the fundamentals of the business. The CEO is a great leader, and Palantir has been doing incredibly well. They've joined the S&P 500. They've joined the NASDAQ 100. What we're talking about here is the risk for downside potential for people looking at entry points in terms of the short term. In terms of a long-term perspective, it doesn't really matter. What's the price to you? What's your opinion regarding the price? That is how you should be doing your research and your own due diligence. Now, the market here, this is where we're starting to get a little sketchy in terms of this pullback that could continue due to the fact that the minutes released from the Fed's December meeting reflected that all committee participants found that the upside risk to the inflation outlook had increased. Sketchy remarks there, basically saying, hey, they're all agreeing inflation is coming back. It's been sticky, it's hanging around, and they can't seem to trap it under the hood. This is really adding to investors' concerns that there may be fewer rate cuts than expected this year. We've already kind of known this, but this is more just solidifying that, resetting the probability and the bets of how many rate cuts are probably going to happen. In discussing here the outlook for monetary policy, they indicated that the committee was at or near the point in which it would be appropriate to slow the pace of policy easing. Slow the pace, aka rate cuts. Bye. We're probably not going to be seeing those until inflation is going to get more towards the Fed's target rate of about 2%. In reaction to this, we saw bond yields, which have been climbing, and we also have the new administration that's going to be taken over here in just a few short weeks. There's uncertainty with the tariffs and the tax plans that could lead to a spike in inflation. So you have inflation that's already staying sticky. We saw this from the JOLTS report in terms of the open positions in the market. And you also have the uncertainty of the impending tariffs. We don't know how that's going to actually affect inflation. So the Fed is having two things to face to try to remain cautionary so they don't let this spiral out of control again, which means that, hey, they're going to have to ease up and slow the pace of policy easing. I can definitely see where they're coming from. However, the market does not like this. And that's where forecasters are finding it a little bit difficult right here. And markets could really get choppy. This is kind of the warning here. If there is a surprise on Friday's payroll release in terms of the jobs report, if there's any big surprise there that brings more negative sentiment, this is going to be a pretty bearish week for the general market. And you have quantum computing stocks here sinking as the NVDA CEO coming out here right during CES week and says, hey, quantum computing is that technology that we talk about. Hey, is it right around the corner? He's saying, hey, it's 15 to 30 years away. 30 years? Who's got time to wait for 30 years? That's what you're seeing right here with some of these stocks that are pulling back, some of these quantum stocks. And he said that this in the event that it would likely be somewhere between 15 to 30 years before we are seeing very useful computers. However, he said that 15 years would be on the early side. And he also said that NVIDIA is going to be an ideal partner for quantum computing companies because it turns out that you need actually a classical computer to do the air computing with the quantum computer. And that better be the fastest computer that humanity can build. And he says NVIDIA is right there to solve that issue. Lots of big things happening in the market. Palantir pulling back. I think we're seeing this right now as we play out. It's important for anybody that's trading anything short term. Please do your own due diligence. Be careful out there in the market. What do you guys make of all this news? Thank you guys so much for watching. I guess we'll take a break tomorrow for Thursday and let the market reopen on Friday. Peace out.